open right now. So this is Teams. And you'll notice along the left-hand side, you actually have a variety of icons. Now, you may not have all of them. I don't know. Sometimes students are using the web browser, and it doesn't always give you the same look. You want to download it and install it on your computer. So in Teams on the side, when you click on it, you'll often notice that you either have a program in here, and most of you right now, because you've been included, should have Word. When Word is opened, there is general resource and training, and this is called the channels. These particular channels allow you to communicate with one another. In general, you have the ability to communicate using the chat, and you can always check the chat in here as well, specific to Word. Resources is where you should find the videos. So in here, day number 1, which is right here, day number 1 video, if I click on this icon for Microsoft Streams, now I'm not sure, I think they're having an issue with Microsoft Streams right now. But when you click on it, it should open up. And let me just log in. You may have to log in as a student as well. Okay. So you'd log in as a student and you'll have access to that particular video, and that'll be the video for that particular day. Yeah, there it is there. So this is the first one that we dealt with on day number 1. And of course, you can play it as well. So in addition to that, you also have a transcript on the side. Now, it sometimes misses words, so keep that in mind. But if you do have speakers, you'll be able to hear it. So just keep that in mind that you can find this inside of Teams. And it's always called Word 2016. Of course, when we do Excel, you'll have one for Excel as well, but you'll also have the Word one. Whatever we add to it, you'll have. Does that help, Natasha?
That helps, Michael. Thank you.
Fantastic. So what I'm going to do is recording has started. Good show. Okay. So what I'm going to do, and I'm just going to stop this other one for a second. There we go. Just give me 1 second. I started a second version of the video. I just need it to stop. Okay, there you go. So what I'm going to do is pick up from where I left off yesterday, but I'm going to recap a few things so that we remember what exactly what we were doing earlier. And you should be able to see my screen at this point. We stopped here yesterday by looking at the ribbon and looking at the file save and save as. And I just want to recoup that, blah, blah, blah. It's an early morning. Okay. So I just want to go over that very quickly again. You can always save a document that has an actual name that you've chosen. If you have opened up a blank document and it's called document number 1, and you end up saving it as document number 1, it'll never ask you again to change the name. However, should you want to create a new name, you can always save as. And that gives you the access to modify the name of that particular document. The other nice feature here is it tells you where that particular file is going to be located. My suggestion is that you create a folder, whether it's inside of My Documents or it happens to be on the desktop, it's up to you. Most of the files we deal with are going to be very small anyhow. So you may want to actually create a folder and then save inside of that so you always know where your files are. It'll make it easier for you in the long run. Let me just drag this out of the way. There we go. Fantastic. I'm just going to turn that off. So you can always save your document. We also talked about information. As I said, we'll talk about the right-hand side a little bit later on during the week. And on this side here, though, it was very important that you understood that you have a variety of different properties. Those properties are hidden. they're in what's referred to as a meta tag. The meta tag is part of the coding for the file itself, and this allows you to, let's say, retain information about that particular file. When it was opened last, when it was adjusted last, who was the last person who actually modified it. This is actually very important information, believe it or not. We'll talk about the security issues a little bit later. But for the time being, just knowing that these particular properties are here and that you can add to it. So let me just pull that over here. You can actually add to this at any given time. And yesterday I added my name to it, but there are many different fields that could actually be altered or put in here as well. So if there's a language issue, you can add what language that happens to be, or what code or date or any other information you want to add into that meta tag. So that information will appear in here. And there are times when it is very important to have that kind of information, especially for security concerns and considerations. I will give you an example. A dear friend of mine actually works for an airline. Originally, when she started working there, her job was to adjust and modify pilot information about 707, 727, 747s, etc., the big aircraft. Those manuals are about 1,800 pages, and this is something that a pilot has to go through before they're even allowed to take that airplane up. So the Ministry of Transport makes lots of changes constantly based on accidents that take place or faulty equipment within aircraft. And it was her job to actually update that manual. Well, in that case, the properties become absolutely essential that you recognize who the last person is who made an adjustment so that you can trace that adjustment. And there are features within Word that allow us to trace any kind of changes that are made. And we'll look at that several weeks from now. So just keep in mind that there's a lot here that you may not even be acquainted with Word. It has some amazing features and some very deep and let's say in-depth capabilities that most people are totally oblivious to. So once again, the properties are here so that we can check who the last person was, what kind of comments were left, any tags. This is actually a beautiful feature of saving a document, by the way. When you put a tag in, you can do a search for that particular tag. I often do this when I'm putting in grades or something for various classes. I'll often put in the date and the word grade in the tag so that I can type in grade and get all the different spreadsheets that have grades on them and that specific date. So this is actually a beautiful feature where we can narrow down the search very quickly. If you can't remember the name of a file, you can remember that you gave it the date, let's say 2020, or you gave it the date August, or you gave it the identity of human resources, or you gave it class, or what have you. But whatever word you use or group of words you use, you'll be able to search for that. So even if you can't remember the name of the file, you can always search by the tag. So that's something to keep in mind.
Can I ask you a quick question, Michael?
Go
It's
ahead.
Jane.
Yeah.
If you send that file to me and share it with me, will I be able to add those properties?
Yes, you can.
Okay, so I can remove what you've put in and edit it with an update?
Absolutely.
Or no?
Yep.
Ah.
However, having said that, as I said, Word has some amazing capabilities. I can lock the document so you can't do that. So I do have the ability. That's why I said we'll come back to what's here on the right-hand side, or sorry, the left-hand side, because some of these allow us to actually determine what you're allowed to do and what you're not allowed to do with a document. And yet at the same time, there is a caveat here we have to deal with, and that is if you save it with a different name, then you will probably have some level of control over it, but you can never save it as the same name again. So we can restrict it. I can actually determine that you're not allowed to make any adjustments to the document. You can't print the document, can't copy from the document. There's a lot of little nuances that we can actually put in here, including passwords, that you cannot make any modification. You can't even open the document without having an encrypted password to do so. So as I said, there's a lot in here, and we're going to come back to this a little bit later, this one section.
Sounds good, thank you.
Okay. So there's a lot of other things here too: share, export, transform, closing the document. We'll come back to these a little bit later. The important ones, however, is save and save as. The other thing that I wanted to quickly come over here, and there are some other options that are available to us. Account, for instance, well, it's just basic information about your account with Microsoft, and you'll be able to see what version of Office you're using, and fundamentally what you're connected to and what you're not connected to. In addition to this, there are other options that are available. These options allow you to make some major changes to your experience. Now, I'm not going to go through this right now. I will kind of give you an overview at this point, and then we'll go through it a little bit later next week, because you need to learn a lot of things before we experiment with this part of it. But you can change the experience any way you want. So if you want different colors for your theme, you can choose those themed colors. If you don't like the way your computer is displaying the information on the screen, you can change the display settings as well. In fact, if, as I pointed out much earlier, if you don't like the ribbon, the way it's set up, you can actually modify the ribbon so that it has other features in it. And you'll probably notice that you even have on the right-hand side a tab or several tabs. In fact, you probably have several tabs here that do not have a check mark in it, so they don't appear at the top. Anything without a check mark automatically is not visible. And of course, there are lots and lots of tools here that are readily available. I'm just going to show you all of them. And by the way, your company that you end up working for can add thousands and thousands of options. So these are just some of the options that are available within Word. And I think you're getting the idea. There's an awful lot here. There's really an amazing amount of different tools that are actually readily available inside of Word. And you can create your own ribbon. So if you decided that, oh, I don't need to see all that garbage at the top, I don't want to see all those little nuances, I only need a couple of tools, then this is something where you could come in and create your own tabs and therefore uncheck everything else that you didn't need. So the ribbon, and remember we talked about the quick access toolbar yesterday, that one right up at the top on the left-hand side. On the blue banner, you'll notice right at the very top, you have the quick access toolbar. The only thing that, and I will show you what I mean in a moment when I close this dialog box. The only problem with the quick access toolbar is that little arrow with the line at the top allows me to choose one option at a time. And then it closes, and then I have to click on it to add another one. However, if I do that from here, and I'm clicking on the quick access toolbar, then I can add as many tools as I want to. I just keep clicking on them, let's say copy, and then I can just simply add. And if I wanted to put in cut as well, let's put in cut, then I add that, and now that's in there as well. Once I click on OK, it'll appear up here as well. So anything, and I'll take table out, so maybe I don't need it anymore. So now I can click on remove, and you'll notice that this will disappear when I actually click OK. So I'm going to click OK. And you'll notice it just disappeared. And now there's a pair of scissors for cut, and copy is beside it. But the reason that you often notice that when you have the ribbon open, or you happen to be looking at some icon that's grayed out. Let me see if I have something here that, here we go. So here we have some grayed out icons. The reason they're grayed out is because nothing is selected. Remember I said yesterday that only when something is selected can you modify it or alter it. So if I tend to select something, then I would be able to actually copy it or paste it or do something like that. So here I've selected this, and you notice all of a sudden they both appear simply because they're now available to me. I can copy something, but if I don't click on something, they're not available because there's nothing to copy. There's nothing selected to copy. So just keep in mind that when something is grayed out, it's simply because it's not applicable. You can't really use it at that point because nothing is currently selected that fits its criteria. So let's just open that ribbon up again for you. There we go. So my ribbon is back open. And I'm going to start off by looking at the view, because the view is kind of useful to us because there are 5 different views that we can see here. The first one is called the reading mode, and when I click on it, I can actually see the content of my document. Now my document is broken down into several pages, so I can actually scroll through these pages by simply dragging this drawbar, and I can jump between them. It'll show me 2 pages at any given time. Of course, I can modify that a little bit by changing the zoom on them, and we'll take a look at that in a moment. Let me just go back to the beginning here. Below that, it tells me how many pages. So at the very bottom, on the left-hand side, you'll see how many pages you actually have with that particular view. So once again, I'm going to click up here, and let's just take a look at what's available to us in this view. In File, once again, this is also referred to, and I want you to remember this, it's called Backstage. So this is like going to the theater. This is the backstage where all the special stuff takes place. So this is the backstage, and there's a little arrow here. If I click on it, it takes me back. The tools that are available within the reading is kind of limited. We can look for specific information. Now we can even translate, and there are quite a few languages that you can translate things into. An old friend of mine used to use this when he was traveling a great deal, because in different countries you want to be able to type up in different languages. So you could translate any information that was in another language. The view allows us to do the editing of the document, focusing, navigating, etc. So I'm just simply going to jump back here to editing so that I can see those 5 views again. And the next one is the print layout. And believe it or not, this is what a page would look like if I printed it. So there's a margin on it. And you'll also notice something else here, that I have a ruler on the left-hand side and on the top. And if you look here in the ribbon, because we are on the tab view, in show, I have a little check mark under under ruler. If I uncheck that by clicking on it, it turns the ruler off. If I click on it, it turns it back on. Now, there are times when it's nice to have that, because this ruler, you'll see it's a grayed area on the left side and the right side. This is your margin. And if I want to, I can modify that margin a little bit by changing its position, make it smaller or larger if I want to. I can kind of modify it any way I want to. So I'm just going to bring this back to 1 inch. There we go. So I'll set it back to where it was. Fantastic. And you'll notice my indents are here too. So I can kind of move a lot of little elements around. You'll get used to this as we start going through this program. But at this particular point, it's useful to know that we can turn the ruler on. And sometimes, and this is kind of when you're in a business environment where you're creating a newsletter or something of that nature, or a letter that has to be defined very specifically because somebody's going to print it. If they're going to send it to a printer and have somebody actually professionally print out, your particular documents, then you probably have to follow a very specific pattern. And grid lines help us do that. So we can set it up exact positioning. And this is actually based on quarters of an inch. So you would be able to, or eighths of an inch in this case here. So you'd be able to set this up. Now, one of the other things here is for inches and centimeters and millimeters. There is a way of setting this up, and that's using the Backstage. And we'll talk about this a little bit later. But just keep in mind that if you need to set it up for metric, you can set it up for metric very quickly and very easily. And we'll talk about that later in the week. Right at the moment, it's set up in inches. So I'm just going to turn those grid lines off. By the way, they don't have to be on, so I'll just take them off. Now, the navigation pane is really interesting because when I click on it, I can jump through the document looking for very specific things. It could be a word, and as we'll discover a little bit later, we can set up headings so that we can jump through the document based on headings. And just for kicks, I'm going to do that right now. I'm going to click on Home. And you'll notice that you have this nice little section here called Styles. And hopefully you have yours open as well so that you can kind of see this and also play around. But you'll see that there's different headings and there's different styles of how the font will actually appear. You can choose all kinds of variations in this situation. And this is part of your themes, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes. But if I choose headings, and wherever my mouse is right at this moment, which is healthy, I can actually just, we'll just grab that there, and I'll make this heading number 1. So now you notice it's over here in my navigation pane. And if I come to general considerations and I choose that, I can make that heading. And there we go. So now I have general considerations. So I can actually jump between the two. And let me choose something a little bit further on here. There we go, medical consultation. And I'll choose that as heading number 1. You'll notice it now appears here. And if I click on these, they become links where I can jump through the document based on the headings. I can also do the same thing with pages, in which case I can see them a little bit more clearly. And the line in between the, let's say, the work area and also these thumbnails, if I grab that line, I can actually widen it by dragging it across. I get that two-headed arrow. And I can drag it back again if I don't need to use all of that space. So this navigation pane actually can be very, very useful. And yet at sometimes it just takes up too much space. So I'm just going to remove it because I don't need it right now. And of course, now it's gone. And I have a ruler on the side. And by the way, because of that little gray area, that margin, there are other ways of doing this. Remember, there is always 3 ways. If I grab this and I drag it down, it changes the margin at the top of the document. So I can change this any way I want to. Fantastic. And keep in mind too, you may want that extra margin because you're going to be printing this and you're going to be printing it on a piece of paper that already has a logo and an address at the top printed. So you may need to have that extra space, and we can adjust that later as well. So inside of View, as I said, there are 5 of these, and you'll notice at the very right-hand side at the bottom of your screen, there's also several. We have the reading, we have the print view, which you see right now. You can see it almost looks like a page. And if I scroll down, there'll be an end to that page. There's the end of the page and the next page to begin. And we also have other views here as well, such as, let's say, the web view. Now, the web view is a little different. You do have in Word the ability to create a web page. So if you ever wanted to create a web page for yourself and you wanted to use maybe WordPress or something else, or some company gives you a free website if you just throw up your own page, you can do that here. It's rudimentary. It's not the best quality, But if I click on it, you'll notice that now there's very little margin on both sides, and it's very wide. And of course, it's changed the dynamics of the page somewhat. Page is now all the way across the page. So you would have to set it up a little bit differently. We will talk a little bit about this near the very end of the course, how you might set this up. But for the time being, it's just a little bit too much. There's another area which I use rather frequently myself, and there's a reason for doing this. It's called the outline. When you use the outline view, you'll see that it uses levels, and there are 9 levels in total. And then there's body text. Body text is just treated like text in any document. But the levels are a little different. Those are the headings. And there are 9 levels of headings that you can have. And there's a good reason for using these. We can divide our document up. Now, you notice right off the bat, I have these little dots, which indicate that this is body text. But I also have these plus symbols. And wherever there's a plus symbol, whatever is below it to the next plus symbol is part of that section. So these are now sectioned. And because there is a heading, anything below that heading to the next one is all associated with it. So if I click on that little plus symbol, you'll notice it selects everything within that particular section. And if I click on the next one, it selects everything that's part of that section. And of course, I can collapse this as well by simply clicking on the collapse. And that's using the minus symbol here. So I can get rid of anything I don't need to work on right now. And then just simply work on this information. So I'm just going to type in is here today. Fantastic. So I can add more information if I want to. In fact, I can open up any one of these by just simply clicking on it and then expanding it. And here we can expand it. In addition to that, I can actually level, I can modify where that level is. I can move it up or move it down. So general considerations I could put below the other section entirely, or I can move it back to where it was. So I can shift the sections of the document around a little bit in this particular area. And of course, I can open it all back up again if I want to do that. Now, there's one reason I love to use this particular section, and I'm not going to go into too great a detail with it, but now that I have headings here, one of the beautiful things about this product is it really learns from you in a very big way. And that is, maybe I would like to have a content page. Now, you've all seen this. It identifies what's on what page. So I might actually want to add something like that. And I can do that in a variety of different ways. So since I now have headings, I can go into table of contents. And it will automatically build it based on my headings. And there you go. Healthy Traveler is on page number 1. General Considerations is on page number 1. And the medical is on page number 2. And of course, if I keep adding to this, then it will change the page numbers automatically for me. So this makes it really, really easy. If I decided I want a big document, I could create all the headings before I put the text in, and it would allow me to build a content page. So this would be my table of contents. So this is something that this particular view setting allows me to set up, is when I have outline view, anything that is a heading will automatically show up in the contents. This is beautiful about this particular product. As I said, there are a lot of tools that most people really are totally oblivious to. They don't know that they actually exist. And yet there are thousands of tools in this particular product. So let me just wrap up view here for a moment. There's another section which is really to our advantage, and that happens to be this zoom area. Now, zoom is rather fascinating because you can have multiple pages on the same work area if you were copying and pasting or comparing. And of course, we can even split the document into parts. So maybe I want to split this document because it's too big and I need to challenge several sections. Or in other words, I want to view several parts of it at the same time. So I'm going to click on split. And you'll notice you now have this line in the middle. Now that line, if you grab it, you can reposition it if it's in the wrong position and you want to move it. However, let me just put it back in the center for a moment. You now have two scroll bars. You have one at the bottom, okay? And you now have a scroll bar at the top. So if I want to compare two sections of the document, or let's say I want to move some text from one area to another area, it becomes really easy to do that. So splitting allows me to manipulate this document and to be able to access more of the content within it. So splitting is actually something that we can explore a little bit later as well. But I just want you to know that you can do this so that you can play around with this document and you can add and subtract parts anywhere you want to. So by clicking it again, it just is going to remove that. The other thing here is zooming, and zoom has many functions. The first thing I want to show you is number one, there are many ways of doing this. From this particular location in the ribbon or from the right-hand side at the very bottom of the screen, you'll see a little drawbar. And I can drag that, make it bigger. Can you see me now? Or you can go down here. Can you see me now? And you can see all the pages. So you can actually zoom it to wherever would be comfortable for you. And of course, you can see it. Just don't let your boss see you doing this. They'll think there's something wrong with you. Fantastic. And of course, you can set it to any value you want to as well. So zoom, if I click on zoom, it allows me to choose from presets. So these presets allow me to see what would it look like if it were 200%. Well, this is basically what I would end up seeing, and this is what the computer screen would show me. If I only wanted to see the whole page, if I click on that, then it's going to show me what the whole page would look like. Now, what's interesting about that is it's the entire page, so the top and the bottom. What we're seeing right now on the screen is not the entire page. So if I click here, you can see that the bottom of the page is now visible, and so is the top of the page. So there is an advantage sometimes to seeing things in a slightly different light. And of course, page width, if I want to make it wider, sometimes you want to see it more clearly. This is a great way of doing that. Just remember that this does not reference what the actual page is going to look like when it's printed. It'll look more like this. And this is also to your advantage because when you are printing a document or you're going to save the document, you want to make sure it's set up the way that they've been asking you to set it up. And multiple pages, if you have many pages, it'll allow you to see these. And of course, if the zoom is not right, I can just drag this a little bit and see only the pages I want to see. So once again, you have the access to change your zoom rate. Piece of cake. Now, there are other elements here, properties, macros, also switching screens. Because you can open up many versions of Word and have many documents open simultaneously, then you can jump between them. In fact, we can even set them up in a very specific pattern, which we'll do a little bit later during the week. And in addition to that, there is also the ability for your document to talk to you. So if you wanted to read this out loud, in other words, if you have speakers, it will actually read your document for you. Okay, so we can have it actually go and read this aloud. Now, I don't know if you can hear that or not, but in the background, it is actually talking. Fantastic. So let's close that. There we go. So that's in view, and there's a lot of features here that have not been included in that particular section. So just keep that in mind. Now I'm just going to jump back to the Home tab so that we can take a good look at it. Remember I said before, anything that is grayed out, and a lot of this is grayed out right now, especially for clipboard. There is one thing I want you to remember as an absolute, and that is that Windows allows you to copy only once, and then you can paste it forever. Okay, so you can paste it in any document you want once you've made a copy in Windows. However, Office eliminates that problem. Office allows you to copy 25 times, or 24 times, sorry, 24 times, and you can paste indefinitely each and every one of them. What they do is they place themselves in the clipboard. So I'm going to open up the clipboard with this little drop-down arrow so that I can see it. Right now, there's nothing there. So just for kicks, I will highlight this section. Okay, I'll show you in a moment. There's another way of highlighting this, and I will simply copy it. Now I can right-click on it, which means I will have all of these options available to me. Okay, and I can choose any one of these, including copy, or I can use the keyboard Control and C as in cat. So if I hold down Control, and let me just do that. Right now I've selected something, so anything that has been selected, I can do something with it. So Control, and then I'm going to just click on C as in cat. And you'll notice right off the bat, right on the left-hand side, you now have a section of what I've copied. And if I copy something else, and I'm just going to take this heading, for instance, and I can copy this here by coming up and clicking on this little icon of 2 sheets of paper. Now, as it says, I could use Control C, or I can click here, or I can right-click and use this side to copy. Either way, and now I have that too, general considerations. And if I wanted Healthy Traveler, I could take that as well. Now, in Windows, you wouldn't be able to do that. In Windows, you could copy just one of these, and then you could paste it indefinitely. But in Office, you can paste 24 times, and you can actually take those objects and then paste them anytime, anywhere you want, wherever you happen to have an insertion point. So if I click right here, let me just put an insertion point here. So now that flashing line is my insertion point, and I can then put in, let's put in Healthy Traveler. So I'm just going to paste, and there's my Healthy Traveler. And if I made a mistake, what can I do? Control Z, or I can come up here to the top and use the little arrow to undo. So once again, let's just undo that. And we take it away, go back one more step, and now we've gone backwards a little bit. And yet we still have within our, let's say our clipboard, we still have content here as well. So there's one other thing that we can actually do, and this is something that I want you to think about. On your keyboard, you actually have a key which is in the center at the very top, and it's called Print Screen. Now, I'm going to click Print Screen, and I want you to watch what happens. I have 2 monitors, so you're going to see both of them appear here in the clipboard. So if I click on Print Screen, even better if it works properly. Might be because I have something else running in the background. Okay, it says it added it to the clipboard, but it didn't, did it? Okay. Well, that was useful. Okay, so Print Screen is not working right at the moment. It might be because of Teams that's running in the background. However, there's another tool I want you to keep note of. inside of Insert, okay, so if I click on Insert, you'll notice that there's a new tool that was added in the last version, and that happens to be a Screenshot. So Screenshot does the same thing that I was doing with the print screen. It will allow me to choose this screen that I want to clip. So as soon as I click on the screen clipping, it's going to remove Word for a moment temporarily. So I'm just going to remove it, click on it, there you go. And now it grays it out. So if I actually highlight an area, there you go, and then I release the mouse, it now puts that image in there for me. And of course, I can then copy that and put a copy of it in here, and I can delete this. I don't need that. And now I can paste it anywhere I want to. Now there is another tool, and I want you to write this down, and it's called snipping. And you go to Windows. Now for the Macintosh, I'm not too sure, but I do know that you have such a tool. And in this case here, I'm just simply going to type in snipping. It's going to come up, there it is. So the snipping tool does exactly the same thing. So I'm clipping on it to open it up. I'm hoping it's going to work because I have another tool running in the background here, and it may not come up for me. Again, I think it's because of Teams that's running in the background, and I'm videotaping this. So this is why it's, oh, there it is. Okay, it finally came up. It'll look like this when it comes up. Okay, and if I decide I can actually choose new, it will gray everything out. And I can now take an image of what is on the screen. So I'm just going to grab this picture of Teams on the other screen. There we go. And this is what you would see. Whoops. If I can drag it across here. There we go. So it's now taken that picture, and I can then copy that. So I can come in here and copy that, and then I can get rid of that. I don't need it anymore. Fantastic. And you notice it's now here. So then I can paste it in anywhere I want to. So once again, I could actually put it in here. So I'll just paste it. And I can either paste it by using this drop down and click on paste, or I can double click it. There you go. So now I have an image of that. And of course, because it is an image, I can resize it as well, make it even smaller if I want to. Piece of cake. So now I can actually put in images by copying and then pasting. And it's not just one thing as it would be with Windows. It's now giving me the option to have it in here 24 different items that I can then paste at any given moment. Let's just get rid of snag it. There we go. So the clipboard actually allows me a lot of latitude. When you get to the end and you've done the 24th copy, then the 25th one will remove the first one so that you'll always have 24 maximum. So it'll always keep removing the first in with the newest one. Now, we have other tools here as well, and this is actually quite important, that not only can you copy something, but you can also paste it. But there are many variations of pasting it. In other words, pasting it with special considerations. These are very unique. And right now, because there is basically nothing in here of any significance, we only have images, and it sees the images as number one. So it's telling me we can paste it in that particular way. However, if there was a link associated with these pictures, or with this content came from another, let's say, document entirely, then we could actually link to the original. And when you link to the original document, whether it's Excel or PowerPoint or something else, or even Word, then what changes you make to the original will be reflected within the copy as well. So it's not just like a photocopy, it's actually linked to the original so that when changes are made to the original, they automatically affect the copy as well. So this is really fascinating when it comes to Paste Special, that you can paste across documents and any changes made to one automatically affect another. So since we're dealing with copy and paste, there is one more option here as well, and that's the Format Painter. Let's say that right now I have, let's say I want to take the number of people and I want to change the color of it. So I'll make it orange. Well, let's make it red so that you can see it. So there's my red, and I'd also like to bold it. So I'm going to click on B for bold. Now I could have, if I wanted to, when it's selected, I could have used the keyboard, which is Control and the letter B, B as in Bob. So letter B, and let me just do that, Control B, I can turn it off or I can turn it back on again. And since it's still selected, I can do something else here. I can also come up to this little paintbrush, which allows me to paint the format. So the format right now is bold and it is red. So if I click on it once, then I can apply it once. And you'll notice that my mouse now becomes a little paintbrush. So whatever I select is automatically going to change to red and bold. And there you go. Now it's red and bold. Just going to undo that for a moment. However, just before I do that, you notice my mouse is now back to an insertion point. It really is no longer the little paintbrush. So if I undo this and I've selected this area again, I want my number of people, which is red. And if I come over here and double click it this time, instead of clicking once, where I can apply it only once, if I double click it, it will remain on as long as I don't click on it again. So now I can come in and I can change anything I want to, wherever I want to. And of course, you can see very quickly, you can get a little confused and your boss will probably give you a pink slip. Fantastic. So this painter will remain on until I go back in and click it again. When I click it again and select something, nothing will happen. So clicking once, apply once, click twice, continuously apply until you click it a third time. So I'm just going to undo what I've just done. And you'll notice it says here I've selected it quite a few times. So I'm going to unselect all of those. There we go, and send it right back to where it was. In fact, if I found that I really didn't like anything I've done recently, I could go backwards and send it all the way back to the beginning and start from scratch. So here, when we have the clipboard, you can turn it on, you can turn it off if you want to. I can just click here, and I can always open it up again if I want to see it. So it's not something it has to be there. The other features you have is changing font. But before I do that, I want to show you selection. So here I can actually click once. I put in an insertion point, and let me just zoom that up a little bit so we can see it more clearly. You can see that insertion point, and I'll put it over here so it's flashing away. Anywhere where it's flashing, I can then type in and it will automatically start to insert information. Let's just back up a little bit, get rid of all that garbage. There we go. However, if I double click, it selects the word. Now, also it selected the space after the word. Now, keep that in mind because that's important to us. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on show and hide. And that's this little treble clef sort of object here. So this is in paragraph and it's show and hide. So I'm going to click on it. Any dot you see is a space. So this is between every word. Now, sometimes when you copy from especially a website, or you copy from an email, sometimes there's special coding in the background. And when you paste it inside of Word, you may find that there are multiple spaces or there are variations within how the document is put together. So you can actually come in, turn on show and hide, and see those elements and be able to modify your document so it fits properly. Now, I'll show you what I mean about that in a second. But if I select this by triple clicking, it selects the entire statement. So in other words, one sentence. And this whole sentence is now selected. So anything that is selected can actually be modified in one way or another. So I can come in and I can change the font if I want to. Okay, and you notice I'm not clicking on anything. I'm just putting my mouse over it so I can see what would it look like if I chose it. And there's lots of different fonts for you to choose from. So lots of different things that you could actually decide upon. If I wanted to make the text larger, again, because it is selected, I have this option, or I can choose the size. If you're doing something very specific, you may actually want to choose one of these sizes. But when that's selected with that little highlight, it also means I can type in a variable. So if I type in 2, okay, and then I press tab, you'll notice right down here that whole section is now so small you can't even see it. It's really, this is called small print. This is when you're asking your boss or you're telling your boss off. Fantastic. So let's take it back to 11. There you go. Or we can use these. I can click on this icon to increase the size, or I can decrease the size. And this is another really useful feature. This allows me to modify how the capitalization takes place. So in this case here, sentence case is fundamentally what we're using. The first letter of a brand new sentence is automatically raised, and therefore it's capitalized. However, we could choose that instead of the T being capitalized, it's all lowercase. Or maybe what I may want to do is make it all uppercase, so everything becomes uppercase. Or maybe I want to capitalize each and every word, which is sometimes done as well. And maybe what I really want to do is toggle it. Now, I don't even know why you would want to do this, but there are cases where people like to do stuff like that, where the first letter of every word is automatically lowercase and everything else is uppercase. So I'm going to go back to sentence for a moment. Fantastic. And the next one is, if I had something here, and I'm just going to highlight this and I'm going to change it a little bit, and we'll bold it for a moment. I can actually come in here and decide to remove all the formatting. So the formatting I've placed in here, the color, and also the bolding, I can turn all of that off again. So I can highlight whatever I want and turn it off. So I showed you that, and let me just turn this show hide off. I showed you that by double clicking on something, I can select it. I also showed you that by triple clicking, I can select the entire sentence. However, there's another way of doing this. I can just simply put my mouse in front of the word or the section I want, and I can drag it sideways by holding on to the left button on the mouse. Left button on the mouse. And that'll select everything that I want. And by releasing it, then whatever is selected is now selected. But I can also do it by putting my mouse in front of the line. So if I put my mouse in front, you notice that it changes from an eye shape into an arrow. And when I click on that, it'll take the entire line and select it. So now the whole line is selected. However, if I hold down the left button of the mouse and I drag it down, it will select each line in turn. So I can select as many of these lines as I want to But when I release the mouse, okay, now it's selected only that particular area. This actually is a really nice little tool. There are other ways of doing this as well, and we'll take a look at some of those a little bit later. But for the time being, this will help us a great deal when we want to select a section. It's really quick and easy. And this nice little toolbar comes up for us. One of the rationalities behind this is maybe the ribbon is not on, and therefore you can deal with whatever you've selected right away. And styles are here, new comments. We'll talk about that in a little while, but you have the ability to make any changes you need. So the other way of getting that, by the way, is make sure that something is selected and then right click, and you'll notice it appears here as well. Okay, so now that this is selected, I'm going to come back up here because there's some other things I can do here with the fonts. We can use the drop down as well. There's my drop down dialog box, and there are two facets. The first is the font, and I can choose whether it's italicized or it's bold or it's something else. And it's going to show you at the bottom what it would look like if I chose that particular option. And of course, I could also choose the colors that I want to use for it. Okay, so I can make that as green. I can put an underline in if I want to, and I can put an underline color in if I want to as well. And of course, there's advanced features, which means I can rescale it, make it larger, make it smaller, put more space in between the characters. There's a lot of little nuances that I can do here. And of course, there are additional options such as text effects. So with text effects, we may want to change the way it appears. We can make it more transparent. We can change the color of it. We can even make it a gradient, which is really a nice tool where that whole section can be a gradient, or we can put a shadow around it, a reflection, glow around it. So we're going to do that as well. Let's just cancel that for a moment. And I'm going to choose general considerations. And I'm going to come up here. So this is another way of doing the same thing. And I'll use this text effect. And now I can actually, as I move my mouse around, I can get a general idea as to what it would look like if I chose that. And by the way, you can still change the size of it afterwards. So this is not something where it's written in stone. And I'm just putting my mouse over so I can see what would it look like. Now I can even come in here and make additional changes, put an outline around it, put a shadow. So maybe I want to have a shadow underneath those characters, and I can move that shadow around. Okay, so different areas. Maybe I want to put a reflection underneath it, and we can do that as well. Or maybe I want to put a glow around it and have different colors of glow. Okay, so Microsoft has worked really diligently trying to put as many characteristics in as possible. And you may actually find that some of these elements that are available to you, they allow you to do some amazing things. For instance, this one section, which allows me to modify it from individual characters, the default characters, different styles that can actually be used, different styles of how numbers are applied. There's a lot of elements that you can manipulate. In fact, the next option here is highlighting. And I know a lot of people like to highlight. You can actually put any color of highlight you would like behind the actual characters themselves, which is nice sometimes when you want to highlight very specific sections for someone. Or you can just remove it entirely if you don't want a color there. And we've already talked about the color. Now, there's one thing I really need to stress here. The colors are based on the theme. It's really important to recognize that. It's based on the theme. So when you put your mouse over a particular color, it will give you a tooltip that will tell you what that color is. And as I move my mouse around, of course, the tooltip will change. And if I move my mouse down into these little gradients of, let's say, transparency, it will tell me exactly what they are. Now, that's important because it also tells me that this color palette is based on a theme. So let me explain the themes very quickly. Right now we have orange, we have a kind of turquoise, and then a purple, and a green, a red, etc. But if I go to design at the top here, you'll notice that there are themes and there are different styles for those themes as well. In fact, there's even a color palette. And here's my color palette. The one I'm using right now is called Office 2007. This is the one with that extra line around it. That's the one that's currently chosen. And you can see it's orange and it's a little turquoise and then purple, green, and red. And that's exactly what I saw just a moment ago. Yet I can change this by clicking on any one of these I want to. And of course, the theme changes too. You'll see my colors have changed. So let me go back to home. And when I come to colors, you'll notice, oh, it's not the same. It's not orange anymore. It's something else. So when you're actually doing your projects, and this is why I'm showing you this, when you're doing your projects, you often are asked to use a very specific color or percentage of transparency. And to do that, you put your mouse over it. But if you can't find that color, the reason is you missed a step. And that step was probably to change the theme. So somewhere along the line, you probably were asked to go in and choose themes and select a different theme entirely. Now, normally, by default, when you install Office for the first time, it's almost always using the Office theme. So I'm just clicking on it, and you'll notice my colors have changed back again. And of course, if I click on another one here, such as, let's choose this one, then of course that changes, but so did my theme. My theme has changed as well. And if I look for it, let's just see where it is highlighted. It has changed one of them. Okay, it's not showing me which one, but we are going to change it back again to Office. Okay, so now it's all the way back to Office again. Piece of cake. Oops, let me just change this for a second. Excellent, okay. So this allows me to choose different colors with the theme. And I just wanted you to see that you can actually jump between these themes, but you want to do it from themes. And this will help you choose the right colors when you actually choose the right theme, because there's more to it than just colors. There's other elements that go hand in hand, like the fonts, like the different headings, and also the ways that the text is actually going to be represented in this particular situation. So you want to make sure you have the right theme when it's requesting it. The effects also and the paragraph spacing will be indicative of the theme as well. So this is why it's really important when you're doing your projects, especially, to make sure you have the appropriate theme. But it will always tell you in the project which theme to use.
Thanks for pointing that out.
Fantastic. So here I've highlighted this section again, and that means I can choose the colors, but there's something else I can do. We can also choose whatever selection we want and define what the paragraphing is going to be. In other words, the alignment. So aligning from the left, center, that's what the center looks like. And you notice it's only the selection area that I've chosen, or it could be from the right-hand side, so it's right justified. So it all starts on the right-hand side of the page. Let me just bring this down a little bit so you can see it more clearly. There we go. A little bit more. That's better. Or we can actually choose justify. Justify is often used in newspapers. It's also used in newsletters. And the reason behind it is it both left and right justifies all lines except the last one. The last line it cannot justify. So it starts from the left-hand side. What happens in justify is it increases the space between words in order to justify on left and right. So let me just click on it. And now you notice it's square on the right side and it's square on the left side. And the reason is it is added just a little bit of extra space between some of the words in here. This is how it actually justifies it. So we have a little bit more space between the R and the O. We have a little bit more space between the capital I and the period. This is how it's actually justified it. So this is actually used in newspapers because they want to fill the page, and sometimes it's easier for people to read it this way. It's not used in business very often unless it happens to be a newsletter or a brochure. Brochures use it very frequently as well. Now there's also bullet points that we can use. And by the way, and we will come back to this bullet points a little bit later, there are many variations. In fact, you can put your own in. So if you want to have telephones like, call me, or you want to say this relationship is cut, or you want to use a chevron such as this arrow head or a check mark, or you can go in and define your own. So if you wanted to define your own bullet points, you could go in and choose a different symbol entirely. And there are many, many different variations of symbols that can actually be used here. Just going to go down to Wingding for a moment. Wingding is a fascination. A lot of people like to play with it. Let's just come down here. Wingding, where are you? There we go. There are 3 of them. Wingdings is lots of diagrams and things like that. So if we wanted to, we could put a bullet point in here like this. Well, there's a little star. Let's put a star in. So I'll click OK. And now we have a star here. So I can put stars in if I want to. Now, if you have your child's picture or your husband's picture, your wife's picture, you can put that in here as well, believe it or not. So you can have anything you want. So I'm just going to turn those off again because I don't really need them. Fantastic. Good show. And we could also put in numbers and many variations of it. So think of it this way. There's lots and lots of latitude here as to what you intend to have. And again, we can define our own. If we want to define something very special, we can do that. And of course, the levels. We haven't talked about this yet. We will talk about this a little bit later, so I'm going to leave that part of it. Now, you also notice something about the ruler. This is now indented. Just going to turn off the numbers for a moment. You'll notice it's still indented slightly. So I can use these 2 characters up here. This icon allows me to decrease the indent. This allows me to increase the indent. And once again, it's what I've selected. The other one here, somebody also mentioned this because of the project that you're doing, which is the paragraph spacing. And there are 2 fundamental ways of doing this. So I'm going to show you both. If I use this, it is the down and dirty, very quick and easy approach. And it's defined by the spacing. So since it's currently selected, and you see the check mark right now, it's set up for 1 line spacing, but I could have 1.15 line spacing or 1.5 or 2 or 2.5, etc. And of course, the amount of space in front of a paragraph or the amount of space after a paragraph, you can actually increase that spacing as well. So this is actually very important because you are going to run into this in a variety of projects where it's going to ask you to actually add in spacing for your paragraph. Makes it easier sometimes to read, but there is another way of doing that, and that's using this drop down with paragraph as well. So when I click on it, there are a lot of options here. One of the options is what we want is down here at the bottom, which is the spacing and the preview. If I change the space after, and it's important, so I'm actually going to do this in a slightly different way. I'm only going to choose this one line. And I want you to notice something, and I'm going to zoom it up a bit so we can see it more clearly. Wow, look at that. Can you see me now? There you go. So general considerations. You notice there's just a little bit of space above and a little bit of space below. And it's the highlight I'm really looking at, because that means that the T below it has just a little bit of space above it and a little bit of space below, and then the Y has the same thing. So in this situation here, I can modify that. So I use this drop down, and now I can actually change the amount of space before. So I can make it larger. I'll make it 12. And I can also do what's after it as well, but I'm going to do that next. So I'm going to click OK so I can see what it looks like. And now you notice all that extra space. So sometimes when you copy and paste something, you don't recognize it, but there is this extra space that is built in. And it's very easy to select. Once again, if I select that particular line, like I can't tell why it's not actually putting an insertion point between those two spots. There's something in the middle here, and I don't know what it is. But if I select it, I can see right off the bat that it is a paragraph error. So all I need to do is go back in here and just remove it. And I can take it down, and I can see it in the preview what it would look like. So if I go back to 0, then I click OK, it takes it right back to where it should be. And of course, if I wanted to, I could put it in there because this is a title. So maybe what I want to do is put after. So I can put a little extra space in after. So click OK, and there's that extra space after. So now the title has a little bit of space between the first section and the title itself. And of course, I can remove that. I can come back in here and simply choose to take it back to 0. Line spacing can also be done from here. And once again, this is putting 1.5. The only thing is you see what it's going to look like. And if I click OK, you can see that extra space, 1.5 spaces is what it's given me. And it's not quite the same thing as using this here, even though, yes, it is showing me that all of the content will now be adjusted. Whereas in this situation, it's only what is selected that has been modified. I'm going to put it back to single again. Piece of cake. So styles here, which is the next section, I'm going to leave these areas here. We'll come back to these a little bit later. But styles in this situation allows me to set up how I want my particular document to show. Now, maybe I want to use this particular option, which is intense, or maybe I want to use this intense, which puts a line above and below and then creates a special font. Remember, I said this has a lot to do with your theme. Or maybe I want to use this one, or this one, or this one. You just read the name underneath, and that's what you're going to apply. But you're never lost. You can always just clear the formatting as well. So create a style for yourself. Maybe that's what you want to do, so you can create your own style. When it highlights like this, we can type in our own name. And maybe you want to call this, let's call it style number 31. You can name it anything you want, and it will actually appear. And then you can modify it. So I can come in here and I can now start to make some changes. So maybe my style is going to be bold, and maybe I want a different kind of font. Oh, that's a good font. Let's use the brushstroke. There you go. There's my brushstroke. And I'd like to make it really big. There you go, really big. And I'd like to change the color of it. We'll make it kind of a goldy color. And maybe what I want to do is kind of make it a little bit larger spacing above and below. And I want it to be center justified. And, you know, and you can go on and on and on and on. In fact, you can even go down here and format it even further still. So lots and lots of different things that you can do with it. And now I have an ST31 style. So if I click OK, there's my style, automatically appears, and it's up here now in style as well. So not only do I have the regular styles for that theme, but I also have my style as well. So if you have your personal style, you may want to create your own personal style. You name it anything you want. In fact, you can create a whole bunch of them. So if you want to have a style 31, 2, 50, 60, 1 trillion, 7 trillion, whatever, you can do that as well. And you can apply it anywhere you want, or you can clear it. Take it away. Piece of cake. The other element here, which is also important for you, is finding and replacing. Now, we're going to come back to find and replace, but you can find anything you're looking for within a document. I gave you the example of a friend of mine who does pilot information books on aircraft. The one thing that she often has in her books are usually about 1,800 pages. That's an awful lot of information, and I'm a pilot myself, so I actually know what it's like going through all of this documentation. But the fascinating thing is you may have to change something. So you can type it in. If I wanted to know where is all of the words the, okay, so I'll type in the, I want to find them. So I can find them, but I can also replace it with something else entirely. And the nice feature here for replacing is I can even choose to change the color of what I replace it with. So if I want to change the formatting in the background, I can do that very quickly and very easily. So I want to find the word the. So I'm going to say, okay, find it. Where is it? Click next. There's one right there. I found one. And I want to find the next one. So I'm just going to unzoom this a little bit so that we can see every time it highlights. Find the next one. Where's the next one? Oh, there's another one at the end here. And find the next one. Where's the next one? There's the next one there. Find the next one. So it keeps looking for that combination. We could have replaced that with something else. So just keep that in mind. Or we can jump to that section, wherever that particular section is. And of course, you can put that in. So these are tools that really do help you because they allow you to jump around the document quickly and effectively. So let's take a look at something a little different because I think you're probably getting bored by now. So I'm just going to jump here to, let's just see where I am. Where is my page? I'm missing a page. Fantastic. Give me one second. I've removed a page. So let me go back in here and just put it in. Whoops. Options. And I'm going to go back to my ribbon for a moment. I've removed it on purpose. There we go. So I'm just putting my tab back in for layout. Layout at the top here allows me to make some adjustments. Now, I showed you that from the ruler, we could actually decide how much space is necessary for the margin. But we can also modify those margins. By using layout on the tab, we can change the margins around to 1 inch by 1 inch all the way around the document, which is kind of nice. But we can also create custom margins. So these are different margin settings that are possible, but we can also create a custom margin. And that means I can now set it up the way I want it to. Now, there's one thing that you need to understand about this, and that is you can never choose a size that is less than the way your computer is set up. So if you have connected a printer to your computer, your printer may not allow for a zero reference. So in other words, if I put a 0 in here and I put a 0, which means it should come right to the very edge of the document. So on the left-hand side, it's going to come right over to the left-hand side here. So there's my 0. And as I go to the bottom, I'll put a 0 in as well. It's showing me what the preview will look like. So let's just take a look. It's not going to accept this because of one thing. The printer cannot print to the corner of the page. So if I click OK, it's going to say, nope, can't do that. So in other words, some of the margins are outside the printable area. When you attach a printer to a computer, it automatically sends code to the programs. And that code tells the program how much space is not available for printing. So if I say fix it, then it automatically modified it. Now, what this space is all about, and I'm actually giving you a little hardware lesson here. When a piece of paper is put into a printer, it must be held very tight. And the reason for this is when you have an inkjet printer or a laser, it has to have a very specific amount of space between the paper and the ink. If the space changes even slightly by a thousandth of an inch, then it creates a splatter. So that the ink, when it's being spitted out, in a sense, it's being shot out towards the paper, it doesn't actually leave a good impression. It actually splatters and creates a halo or a ghosting around the characters. And the reason for this is because the paper is vibrating. So it has rollers on the sides and at the front and the back. So when the paper goes through, it holds it really, really tight. So it's that 1/17th of an inch that is actually held with a roller, and therefore you can't print in that area. For printers that actually print to the edges, they're called bleed printers, and they have a slightly different traction method of holding onto the paper. So in this case here, because I do have a printer here, it doesn't allow me to come to the very edge of the paper. And it's telling me that when I set up the margin so that I don't do it. So why would you even care? Well, the reason is very simple. Maybe you have a company that you work for that has their logo down the side of the page. Or maybe they have their logo at the top of the page and it's a pre-printed form that you're simply adding information to. So you don't want to print in that particular area, so you set it aside as a margin. And that's why you would set aside this particular area. So just keep that in mind when it comes to setting that up. The size of the document and the orientation of a document, whether it happens to be lengthways or it happens to be vertical or horizontal, in a sense, portrait or landscape, you get to choose which of the two you want. And it really depends, because in some situations, when you're printing envelopes especially, your printer may need a very specific layout for the documents that it's printing. Just depends on the type of printer you're using. So a lot of different features are available in here. And I'm just going to click on Insert for a moment, because inside of Insert, there's a few tools we want to take a look at as well. Within Word, there is a very special area which is held aside, and that's part of our margin here. And it's called the header and the footer. So I'm just going to increase this margin a little bit. This area at the top, if I double click on it, everything else goes grayed out, and it now calls it the header. And at the very bottom of the page, it shows me that there's an area that's protected, which is called the footer. This area we can now type information into. And you're going to notice something. Your ribbon has changed immediately. It has now got a brand new tab at the top here. There are 3 of them. One is called Table Design, Layout, and Header Footer. Header Footer is the area we're now working with. And I can jump between them. And I can decide how large they are. I can put a date in there. I can put a variety of different elements in there. But there's also some templates. For instance, right now I'm on the footer, and I may decide to use a very specific kind of footer. Maybe I want one where it has 3 sections. Maybe I want one that has only 1 section. And I can decide, and I can go in here and modify that entirely with other templates that are available, such as putting a line there or putting a space or something of that nature. And there are different types. So maybe I want to put a page number in there plus the name of the person who created the document. The key here is play. The one thing I really, really want you to get used to doing is playing. You cannot hurt this. Just no way of doing that. You can play around with this all you want. I'm just going to click on this one, and you'll notice that it automatically includes it. Now it tells me this is page number 1. And if I click on the regular section again, it automatically jumps to it, and it now grays out the header and the footer. So it's one or the other. You can either work on the content or you can work on the header or the footer, but you can't work on both at the same time. So let me come back up to the top, and you'll see my header is here. So I could put a custom header in if I wanted to. There's a custom header for me. What other ones do I have available? Oh, I like this one, so I'll use this one here. And now it puts a custom header in. When I close that, and I can do it from the ribbon as well, then everything else is increased, and this is now decreased in value. So it becomes a little bit more transparent, but now I can actually work on the document itself. So there's some really interesting features within insert, header, footer, putting in a page. There are comments that can be put in. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But one of the other things that you can put in here are objects. I know you're probably getting a little tired and you want to take a break, and we're going to take one in a moment. But we can put in pictures. They can come from the internet. So if I want to put in an image in here, a stock image, for instance, let's see what we have available to us. There's a lot taking place in the background, and I'm just going to type in here tiger. Let's look for a tiger. There's a tiger. Oh, that's a nice tiger. We'll take that tiger. Oh, that's a good one. I like that one. Oh, that's even better. Oh, no, I like that one. So I'll take this one. There's my tiger. And I can resize it. Now, keep in mind, because it's selected right now, it's got all these little circles around it. These are called fill handles, or you can grab handles, or whatever you want to call them right at the moment. But it automatically comes up on the ribbon as its own tab, and it's open. So we can modify this particular picture in a variety of ways with styles that we may want to choose, or we can rechange the size of it. We can even crop the image a little bit, so I can make it smaller. I can reposition it if I want to position it in a very specific location in the document. Or, and you'll notice on the side here, we'll talk about pictures a little bit later, because text wrapping is a very important element within pictures. But I'm just simply going to change the size by grabbing the handle and dragging it in. And the more I drag it in, the more it's going to change. If I go too far, it flips the picture. There you go, just flipped it. So this animal is now looking in both directions. Fantastic. And of course, I can make it as small as I want to. And here's another beautiful feature about this. If I right click on that picture, I can now put a link on it. So if I put a link on it, I'm just going to click here. I'm going to type in that I want it to go to Trios. So I'm going to put in HTTP. And I'll put in trios.com. So anytime I now click on this picture, it'll go to Trios. Now I could have went to an email or anything like that. Just going to click on it. There you go. So when I click on it, you'll notice something happens right off the bat. Put my mouse over it. It now tells me if I hold the control key down and I click on it, it gives me the finger. And if I click on it, it will now open up Trios. There you go. Fantastic. So we can put links on it. We can have it open up email. We can have it do all kinds of things. We'll talk a little bit about this next week as well, because we're going to do a little exercise using links. And we can put all kinds of links into this and all kinds of pictures. And I don't like the appearance of it, so I clicked on it. Now I have that tab again, and I can now change the design of it. So maybe I would prefer, let's take this one here. So it looks more like a photograph, and I'd like it to be more like a button. So I'm going to come down here and I'm going to bevel it slightly. There you go. So now it's got a little bit of a bevel on the side of it. Isn't that cute? So now it's a real button. And if again, I hold down the control key and click on it, now my button is automatically taking me somewhere. So you can put links on these things, and if I think it's too big, make my button smaller. And now I can have many buttons across here, each one doing something different. So Insert actually has some unique features. There's another one that has been added recently. And this is fundamentally in 365, also 16 as well. And this is 3D models. And this is a phenomenal tool. I think this is hilarious. I like this. So let's just open up our, there you go. Just going to put a dinosaur in here. There you go. Let's just move him over here. And we'll just shift his position a little bit. Look at him. Isn't he cute?
I love it.
This is like that song was created for, that happy face sort of thing. He wants to have you for lunch. And if I click on it, because it's a 3D image, it's after the cat. Fantastic.
Good.
This is that cute little animal you always wanted to play with. So what I'm trying to get across to you is a lot of changes have taken place through the years, and they've gotten better and better. Lots of different elements can be placed in here, including bookmarks, where we can jump through the entire document, and we can give people the ability to do that. If I wanted to, for instance, and I wanted to put a little box in here as well, I can choose the text box. And let's just grab this one here because it's similar to the top. And now I can actually put some content in here that I want. I can type in anything I want to, and then I can save that information. And now I have a text box right in the middle of my document. So these are really fascinating tools that are available to us within Word. There are other elements here we're going to take a look at as we go along, especially word art. I'm just going to click up here near the top. In fact, I'll come to the end of this and I'll put some word art in here. This is a tool that a lot of students love. Okay, and I'll choose this one here and I'll type my name in. I could put anything I wanted in, and I can move this anywhere I want to. And now we have word art as well. word art can be modified in 1,000 different ways. And you notice simply because it has been selected, I now have a tab that allows me to make other modifications and other changes as well. In fact, I can put a border around it. I can change the coloring in the background. I can change the type of font, such as, for instance, the styles. Maybe I want to change the style. Didn't like that one. Don't like that one. I'll take this one here. So now I have this one, and maybe I want to put a shadow under it. So what I'm trying to get across to you is there's a lot of ways of embellishing your document in new and exciting ways. There's a lot of things that you can actually do. So now I've got a little bit of shadow in the background as well. So tools that are available to you nowadays are really significant. There's a lot of possibilities. So the good news is I'm going to stop at this particular point, and I'm going to let you play. One thing I do want are those individuals who have not yet created their account on Cengage. Go ahead and do that. Make sure that you are doing that and getting it done. I am monitoring it. For the one, Kiana, I'm going to check and find out why you don't have that email. I'll double check on it. I think I did get a response yesterday from Leilani, so you might want to connect with her as well. The other thing is I want you to use this document that I gave you, the demo document, and I want you to just play. I want you to click on everything. You cannot hurt it. You can always start from scratch again. Just rename it something else, and you'll always have that demo file available to you. And hopefully you're using it while I'm going through it so that you can get a good feel for what you can accomplish. You definitely need to go through the training. Go through it as many times as you need to until you feel really confident. And the other thing is I want you to experiment and just play like a child. Just don't care too much. Don't worry about making mistakes. When you're doing your project, you do get 2 attempts, but read carefully. So don't just jump at things. One person this morning, I had to reset theirs because they had literally jumped into it without reading. You need to read first. That's very important. So having said all that, I'm going to let you go. I want you to go over to Cengage, and I want you to start working on your training. And remember, there's a project there. That project needs to be completed today. So you definitely want to make sure that you're working on it. You have up until midnight. So just keep working on it to get it done. And then there's a quiz tomorrow, and we will start into some new training tomorrow as well. Does that make sense?
Okay, Michael.
That's me again.
I just need a little bit of guidance about the project.
Yeah, what is it?
Okay, so when they ask you, I just need to know the key points, like where to go to do step 1.
Where it says step 1.
Okay, I'll show you. Can you pull it up?
Natasha, the instructions themselves take you step by step by step. Step
It
1.
does?
Step 1 is step 1. When you're downloading, by the way, for everyone, since you're still on, just hold on a second. Let me switch over to Cengage so I can walk you through the project. This will make it a little bit easier. So Cengage, where's Cengage? There's Cengage. So just give me a moment. Fantastic. Okay, so project number 1, which is what you're working on at the moment, and let me just open it up. When you click on this link for the project, it's going to come up with this page. And when you click on start, it's telling you you have 2 attempts. And when you click on start, it's going to show you that there is instructions, and there's also the document that you're going to modify and send back to them. Now, there's one thing I really want you to listen to very, very carefully, and that is the document they give you has your name in it, and it has a number 1 at the end. The only thing you have to do when you upload it to them is change that number 1 to a number 2, but everything else remains identical. So here's the documentation. If I click on it, you'll notice it starts to download. So it's going to download at the bottom here. And I'm going to click on the other one so I have both files available. Okay, so I'm just going to drag these out of the way for a moment. Let me just reduce down a little bit. And let's just minimize that. So I'm just going to drag these over so I have them available to me. There we go. And we're just opening it up. As I said before, you can have many versions of Word open. It just is going to slow you a little bit. I want to enable editing so that I can make changes to it. Okay. And you'll notice that there's a number 1 at the end. Now this number 2 simply means I've downloaded it before. So that's what the 2 is, and we want to get rid of that. I don't want that in there when you submit it. And in here, there's going to be things that you need to change. This is the file you're going to modify. The other file, and let me just open the other file here, which is the instructions. Remember, you have to download both of them. These are the instructions, and it goes step by step. First of all, it tells you the most important element, which is when you actually are uploading this, you are going to make one change only when you save it, and you're going to save it with that number 2 on it. That's the one thing you're going to change because it recognizes this is the unchanged document has 1. The changed document that you've modified has a number 2 on it. Excuse me, same document. And of course, the step-by-step. Follow the steps verbatim. Do not, under any circumstances, jump steps because every step is necessary to be followed exact. You cannot go from 1 to 4 and then back to 2 and then up to 10 and then back again. You must take it step by step. Step 1, step 2, step 3. Otherwise, the computer will mark it incorrect. This is really important for you. So let me show you what happens now. Since I've downloaded them, and let's just say that I finished it, I'm going to go back in again. Okay, so let me just close that up. I'm going to come back in. I'm going to click on, I want to do the project. Now keep in mind, the project is on your computer, and I'm going to click Start. Now it automatically jumps to step number 2. Now, if you wanted those original documents again, all you need to do is click on back and it goes back to page 1. And these are the 2 documents that you needed. I'm going to click on continue to take me to the second step. The second step is looking for the same document, but this time with the number 2 applied to it. And it's going to immediately, in less than 1 second, it's going to mark it. So the moment you click that you are uploading this document and you select it, if I click on it, it's going to ask me to select that document, make sure you know where you've saved it, and then you're going to click on it. Let me go to the desktop here because it's on the desktop somewhere. Where is it? Probably be helpful if I choose Word documents too, right? So where's the Word? Here's the Word. So there's the document. Now, I would have saved it as number 2, so I'm going to do that. Well, I can't do it. It's open right now. Hold on. Okay, as long as it's open, I can't modify it here. But I would change this to a number 2 and get rid of this bracket with a 2. That's garbage. And of course, I would then click OK, open it. It would automatically mark it. So it's going to look at it. It's going to say, this document is not the document. It will then have a submit button. You click on it when you have that number 2 there. Mine does not have that. Let me do it very quickly for you. So let me just, I don't need that right now. Okay, hold on a second. Let me grab that document. There it is. So I'm just going to quickly save this document. And I'm just going to change this to a number 2. So there's my number 2. I'm going to save it. Fantastic. No, I haven't made any changes to it, and I'm going to close it. And then I'm going to upload it. So I'll select that document again. There it is. And I'll click OK. You notice it is a number 2 at the end. And it says, yes, it found it. Yes, it's the right one. And now if I submit it, it goes through it and it scans it. Now, I can view the report. Now, keep in mind, I have done nothing to this, so it's going to have lots of errors in it. And I'm simply going to view my report. So I've clicked on it. It has downloaded my report, or has it? Yep, there's my report. So my report at the bottom here, I'm going to double click, open it up. And you notice all the errors. Well, I haven't changed anything, and therefore I haven't got a good mark. But the nice thing here is it's not only showing me the errors, and it's telling me what they are in red, but it's doing something else here at the bottom. Let me go down to the bottom, because this is what you would have submitted. And it's showing you all the errors that you have here. So if I click on it, it tells me what the error was. And now you can go in and modify it and correct it. And then, of course, resubmit it again if you want to. Does that kind of make sense to everyone? Yes, no, maybe, could be, should be?
Yes.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yes, let's see. We'll have to try it first.
Fantastic. That's the way to look at it. However, the most important thing is, and it really is important, is that you choose one. Fantastic. So the one thing I definitely want you to remember is the name must be changed when you save that document. And you're only changing the 1 to a 2. But you've done all the changes necessary before you upload it. If you have any problems with that, you can always jump back into Teams and I'll walk you through that process.
Michael.
That's me again.
My computer crashed. My laptop crashed. So I'm using my cell phone. But for the quiz, I only have one more computer downstairs where I can use after 5. So can I do the quiz at 5?
You can do it after 5 tomorrow. You cannot do the quiz today.
I know that.
Okay.
So that would be okay though, right?
Yes, it would.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So for every, yep, go ahead.
Sorry, I just wanted to ask, is there a way, when you're doing the work, is there a way to save it midway, just in case you have something to do, or no?
Absolutely. Since you're working on Word, if you're working on Cengage, don't worry about it, because it will remember where you were. If you're working on Word, then all you need to do is just save your document.
Yeah, because yesterday I was working on Cengage, and I had to leave my laptop for a bit, and I had to restart the entire thing.
Are you talking about the training?
Yeah, the training.
It should have picked up from where you were. When you have the training open, let me just open the training so you can see what I'm looking at here. Just opening up the training quickly. So here's the training here. Now, I haven't had this open since yesterday, and it started off at number 3 because I've already done the other 2, and you can see the check mark that we did yesterday.
Yeah.
It will remember. You just have to make sure that when you open it up again, that you're actually using this little bar at the top. And you can choose whichever question doesn't have a check mark on it. So you should be able to pick up. You should be able to. It's just the way it's designed.
Yeah, because it went back to 0, and then I had to start 1, 2. I did not open the task list though.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, try the task list because it should automatically open up wherever you left off last.
Yeah.
As long as you're closing the program and not just simply closing the browser.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Fantastic. So for everyone who's online right now, I will see you again tomorrow. I will be here until 12 o'clock noon anyhow. So if you need any help, just jump back in again and call out. And it gives me a minute to get to the computer and I will help you out. But what I would like you to do is start exploring Word a little bit, start playing around with that demo file I gave you. And also go through the book as well, because it is there for you and all the files are there. So you definitely want to do not just the training, not just do the project and the quiz tomorrow, but you want to make sure that you are experimenting and playing with this. And once again, as I said, be like a child, because children do not worry too much about success or failure. They just want to have fun. And that's what you should be doing when you're playing around with these new programs for a while. So I'll let you go and have a phenomenal day, but at least...
Michael?
Yep, go ahead.
Like Sheila mentioned, I didn't receive an email about the keyboarding. Where do we go to practice that?
Keyboarding, you haven't received that email yet, I am assuming.
No.
Is that correct? Okay, so don't worry about it just yet.
Okay.
Okay, when they send you an email for it, then we'll talk about it. But right now, it's just going to confuse you because you don't have the code for it yet.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you so much. You did a great job explaining.
Phenomenal.
Michael?
Hey, Michael.
That's me. Go ahead, somebody.
Sorry.
So, okay, go ahead. After you.
Sorry, I just have a question because, you know, I'm using an Apple MacBook and sometimes it froze and I can't see it. So you explained just a while ago about the project, right? That
Yes.
we have to change it into number 2. Is it from the start or at the end when we submit?
When you submit.
Okay, but from the start, we don't change nothing, only when the time we submit.
Yep.
Okay.
It's better that way. It is actually better if you save it with the number 2. If you don't and you start saving it from the beginning, you may end up with several versions of the same thing.
Oh, if I save it from the beginning.
Yeah, you may end up with several versions.
Yeah, so it's better to change the file name into number 2 at the end when I submit it, right?
That's right.
Okay. Yeah, because I have a problem because I'm using Apple Mac. So sometimes it's disconnected. I can hear your voice, but I cannot see the picture that you're trying to explain. So what I gonna do maybe at nighttime, I have to go back to the training and do it once more. Yeah.
Well, remember something, Delora, is that I've created that extra team environment.
To go there in the Teams that you recorded.
Yep. And there's a recording there on day number 1. So you just double click on it. It'll open up as a video.
Mm-hmm.
And you can watch everything we've done so far.
Okay, thank you so much.
Not a problem.
Hi, Michael.
Yes, go ahead.
So with the code you gave me yesterday, everything was all right, but at some point I logged back in and it's told me that I have 14 days to purchase something. But I think sorry?
So when you actually set it up, did you put the PP code in?
PP, no.
Okay, that's why. What you need to do, the email that they sent you had your username and it also had underneath it a code.
The one they sent me all the way back in September?
Yeah. Okay, that would be the one, I guess. Or the link. Did I not send you an email with a link in it?
No, no, because we took a class before with you, the PowerPoint.
Give me 1 second. I have to jump back to that section.
Okay.
Where is it? Where's the code?
Yeah, I think this is the one you gave me yesterday.
This one here. And you type that in?
Yeah, I typed that in, and once I went in, it said something about having 14 days a trial, and then after the 14 days, I would have to pay.
Okay. When did you originally start? Is that September?
Yeah, I started in September.
Okay, just give me a second. Oops. Okay, I'll check on it and see what I can find. It should have recognized your original code. It sounds like it didn't, so I'm going to have to contact the administration and see what they can do for you.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
I'll double check on it.
All right. Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
Can we leave, Michael?
Yes, indeed. Yep.
Thank you so much, Michael. Have a
Okay.
nice day.
Thank you, Michael. Bye. Have a good
Thanks,
day.
Michael. A good one.
Take care.